free. I need to be free.
Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you.
Hello and welcome to Unshackled. My name is Dominic Dixon. Beloved, I want you to pay close attention to this because we have somebody in the studio today whom I'm going to be talking to. This pastor has committed his life to helping young children who have been taken captive in many ways and they are sexually exploited. Pastor Gavin Cuningham, he is the senior pastor of the First Assembly Church in Bangalore. He and his wife are conveners for the anti-human trafficking movement in Bangalore. They've been doing a phenomenal job. I personally visited the site. I've gone there and it really broke my heart to see what was happening on the outside world to innocent children. And Pastor and his wife have taken these children and given them the love of God. Pastor, I want to thank you for joining us in the studio today, Pastor.
It's a joy to be with you, Dominic.
When I visited your home, the home for the children, it really touched my heart because I've witnessed the love that you and your wife are dispensing to these children who are in distress. Pastor, you and your wife predominantly focus on the anti-human trafficking, and you narrow down to the Devadasi movement. Could you just give us a brief on that?
Well, Dominic, when we started out, the anti-human trafficking movement itself, the network that we convened, was concerned about anti-human trafficking on a larger scale. The whole issue of sexual prostitution and the brothels and everything else that works, and looking at all aspects of human trafficking as per the UN definition of human trafficking, the transport, the movement of people and persons for the purpose of commercial utilization. The whole movement was based out of the UN definition for that.
Right.
And so when we started working with that, we noticed that we had to look into what was happening at the sex trafficking business in our own country, because India is very high in that.
That's
the
right.
figures that came out in the newspapers, the figures that are available right now on the websites and channels, which say somewhere between 7 to 9 million girls are actually stuck in sexual trafficking.
For those of you watching, just listen again to what Pastor says. 7
to 9 million girls
7 to
today
9 million girls in the nation of India
in sex trafficking.
are into sex trafficking. We're not talking about just mere prostitution or where somebody goes out voluntarily. We are talking about human trafficking, forced sexual slavery.
Yes.
My
yes.
word.
And I mean, you look at the wider aspects, you're looking and saying 30 to 40 million kids and people involved in child labor, in bonded labor.
30 to 40 million children are involved in
Child labor, bonded labor.
bonded labor.
It's all available on the websites that we can access today.
So this is no secret.
No, it's not. It's not a secret. Anybody can Google it and find those statistics available to them.
We are living in such a modern era,
Yes,
and this is happening in the open.
that's right. The website indicates that the government is in full awareness of it. The government has passed a number of laws and rules to be able to handle it. And every article would tell you that society today is raising questions in terms of the implementation of some of the most fantastic rules that we actually have within the system.
Exactly.
And so that's where we are looking and saying, what can we do? What can we do? How can we come beside the government and do something small For example, our Prime Minister has called for Swachh Bharat. And I believe cleaning India is more than cleaning the roadside.
Absolutely.
I care more for the hearts and lives of people on the roadside than the road itself.
Absolutely.
And so when my Prime Minister says Swachh Bharat, I want to be able to touch lives of people and join in the whole process of emancipation and liberation and freedom, a restoration of rights, dignity, justice to the ones that are deprived of that.
Pastor, it's so amazing what you were just talking about, and it's overwhelming to understand that if there are statistics that are open and these statistics are available, which means this is a reality of the evil in society. Before we get into more discussion about the Devadasi system, I want you to watch this short video.
It's a trap that they're stuck in. It's a living hell that they're experiencing, and regardless of what they do or where they go, they're still trapped in that.
Devadasi system in Karnataka is a very old practice. Devadasi is God's servant.
It's temple prostitution, and it's completely accepted because it's something you're doing as out of devotion to your God. Not only are they shunned because of their profession, but they're shunned just by society because of their status. They're the lowest of the low. They're not even in the caste system, they're outside the caste system.
ಈಗ ರೀ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಇರ್ತಾರಿಲ್ರಿ ಸರ, ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಹಡೆದ ಬೀದಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಸರ. ಆ ಥರ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇವದಾಸಿ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳದಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇದ್ದಂಗ್ರಿ ಸರ್.
When they are just an infant, born right 1 month or 2 months, they get married to the goddess Selama. Once they become matured, then they go to the temple. Most of the time, the girls, when they dedicate, they do not have a choice because the parents choose for their life.
ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಎದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಯಾರ ಅನ್ನೋದೇನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲರಿ, ಅವ್ರು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಜೋಪಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತೇಳಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ.
Many of these women were the second or third born in their families, and their parents dedicated them because maybe an older sibling or one of the parents was ill or had some kind of health problem, and so they would sacrifice one child for another child.
The women here are like prisoners. Every woman would like to have a family and children of her own, and she doesn't get this chance.
See, Devadasis, they are isolated, discriminated, living in a secluded community.
ಸಾಕ್ರಿದ ಇಷ್ಟ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟು ಮಂದಿ ಕೈಲೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಟ್ಟಾರ ಅನ್ಕೋತೀವಿ. ನಾವು ಈಗ ಎಷ್ಟು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯಾಗಿದ್ದನ್ನು ಮಂದಿ ಕೈಲಿ ಕೆಟ್ಟಾರ ಅನ್ಕೋತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಮಾತ್ರ ಅದನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಇಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹಚ್ಚೆ ಬಂದ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು.
To sacrifice unknowingly or unwillingly your body, your dignity, your respect, everything about yourself for another person. That just really hurt my heart. They need to know the love of Christ, and the only way that they're going to have that is if we go and tell them. They don't know the sacrifice that Christ made for them. All they see is them making sacrifices. It would be so powerful, I think, in their lives to hear that there is a God who loves them so much that he would sacrifice his life for them, not just his body, but his life.
Pastor, what is happening with the Devadasi system? Could you, just for the sake of our audience, could you just speak a little bit about the Devadasi system and what you're doing about it?
Well, we didn't go directly to deal with the Devadasi system, but we went in to look at the situation and plight of our women in the brothels. And so we visited a number of places with different social workers, with government workers, with different people to look and say, is there something that we can contribute to the lives of these people? Can we make a difference? Can we hold their hands? Can we do something to change their lives? And so when we went in there, we began to notice that all across Maharashtra, we maybe have visited at least 14-15 brothels in Nagpur, in Mumbai, in Pune, in different places. We visited different places. And we did notice that a large number of the girls inside there were from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, from Andhra Pradesh. And the background of these girls who were inside, they incidentally, they say something like 45 to 50% of the girls in the sex trafficking scenario all across the nation are from these 3 states, and Karnataka happens to be the highest to contribute. These you can Google and look at these statistics online. But we found, when we began to question why Karnataka, why Tamil Nadu, why Andhra Pradesh, we found at the root of it was the prevalent Devadasi system that works within these 3 states that was actually providing the resources for these women to come in and then be moved into human trafficking and sex trafficking at the next level. Because at the end of the day, how many women can you hold within the temple system of the Devadasi system today? You can't hold all of them. So most of the women were actually going across the border and were involved in sex trafficking. What began in the temple is now ended up in the brothels of different places.
It's like from one misery into another misery.
Yes.
And which is worst? I mean, is there any parameter of measuring which is a worse place to be in, whether it's at the temple as a prostitute or in a brothel house?
I don't have a measuring stick for looking at both those things, but when I look at it, I'm looking at people. If you remember the article that came out on the 24th of November and 25th of November in the Deccan Herald called Servants of God, and these women are looked upon as servants of God.
Would God want a woman to be misused by so many men?
I do not believe that any God would want women to be misused, but the way the system has looked at it, from the perspective that you are actually marrying God itself and you are therefore serving God, and in the process of serving God, there's a lot of things that happen in your life. I would say, in all religious systems today, whichever religious system, there are certain things that are dangerous.
Exactly.
There are certain things that get a religious sanction on it, and there are movements.
Speaking of the religious sanction, but there is an essence of the religious sanction, and then the law also can come into play.
Yes.
For example, the Devadasi system, they start out as children, as child prostitutes.
That's
so what is there's a conflict with the law.
There is a conflict with the law, and I'm glad that our law has recognized that there's a problem. 84, 86, there were laws passed against the Devadasi system in Karnataka, and they came strongly against it. I've been up in North Karnataka at places where it's been very strongly prevalent. I've watched the officers coming in and out. The government is trying. But if you go into, for example, like a little place like Bellary, there are hundreds of little shrines where the system just still continues. And the article in the Deccan Herald tells you that it is going on, and people are looking at ways in which to change their lives.
Now, tell me this, is it sort of a vicious or an evil cycle?
Very much, very much.
Then why, for example, there's been a woman who was a Devadasi, a temple prostitute, whilst she was a child.
Yes.
She got married.
Yes.
She got her children.
Yes.
Her children also became temple prostitutes.
Yes.
And then her grandchild. So why are they not cutting it? Why are they not putting a stop? Why is this vicious cycle continuing?
I would say there's a lot of the economic factors that are there that are playing up in the system. Secondly, there is not enough avenues through which the women can actually come through and
Is there a mafia that's controlling it in many ways?
There is. It's spilling over from the brothels. You see, so that's where the connect between the two systems we need to look at and say we need to see that the connect is broken. So when you're talking about the women that are going through this process, we're looking at them and saying, well, they come in, they become dedicated women as servants of God, but there is no real future in the temple system itself. There is somebody else watching from the sideline, and he's ready to pounce on them and take them and move them over into the brothel system that is available.
it's like they have a headhunting system.
Oh yes, oh yes. So if you're looking at the woman, the law, Karnataka law says the woman can marry and come into the mainstream of life. But the law also tells us that in the village system, that if she does that, as she marries and she comes out, it's going to hurt the family, it's going to hurt the entire village. So the
When
whole
you say it's
system.
going to hurt the family, what do you
Yes.
mean? Is it like a
Well,
bodily threat?
No, it's a more the use of religion where the gods will get angry with you,
My
and so the gods are going to get angry with your family, and gods are going to get angry with the village, and so the whole village is going to bear the blunt of your act of getting out of this and doing away with it. So the government has made extensive effort to come against this kind of a stuff. There are rules and laws that are passed. There's even a remuneration that the government actually gives the women, but it's not enough. The opportunity to mainstream and to come out of it is not there. If you're looking what's happening, a woman comes into the system with the religious system cannot hold this, and so the religious system holds them out, and there are the others that come in like sharks. They prey on it, take it out. The girls end up in the brothels.
Pastor, I remember you and your wife were sharing with me about, I'm not sure if it was in the brothel or in the homes, or in the temples rather, where a little girl was wanting to escape, and then she faced hell on earth. Could you speak about that?
Yeah, that was a story of some of the girls that was rescued by the government, and when she came out, she gave her story of what happened to her. She was taken at the age of 7 or 8, and actually sold off by her father, and deep debt and all this kind of stuff. So he sold her for some finances, and the girl went out and she was taken into one of the brothels. You know, our girls from the villages are very careful with the way they dress and
Correct.
cover, and so when she reached the place, she was given some skimpy clothes to wear. And so when she was given that, she wept, she cried, she said, I can't wear these things. And a couple of men entered the room and just tore the clothes off her body.
My God.
And so she had to put on all this
The
stuff.
men who tore it were the pimps.
Yeah,
basically.
within the system there that enforced the system and how it works. And so then the girl looked, and the next moment came in the men, and she was raped by the men, like 10, 15 guys a day. And
how old was this child?
she's 8 years old. She was just 8 years old. And so she came to a point where she was looking and saying, I would like to commit suicide. And the child appealed to some of the friends and says, where can I get a rope? In walked in some of the concerned men at the end of the day and handed her a rope, said, heard you're looking for a rope, here's it, you can have it. And so the child looked, and she was shocked that somebody was given a rope, and so she thought, oh my goodness, someone's going to actually help me with this. And so they said, well, do you need to tie it around the fan? Do you need to put it around your neck? Do you need any help with it? We can help you with it, and that'll be good for you. And she thought they were going to be quiet on it, but then they said, after you commit suicide, we'll cut your body up into pieces and give a beautiful parcel of all your parts to your father. And they said,
My
we know where your
God.
father is, and you have a younger sister. We'll bring her in to take your place. And I don't know what it is to live in a place where even suicide is not an option. Death is not an option.
God.
And that's the kind of a system that some of our girls are trapped in. It's a very devious system. This story is available on the internet, and you can find it on the internet. Yeah.
You also talk about some of the abuse cases that these children go through. What are some of the narratives?
You know, if I get into that, I'll have to tell you 25 stories.
I guess.
But there are hundreds of video stories of the girls on YouTube that you can find, of India, of Karnataka, of Mumbai, and all
For those
these
of you
places.
who are looking to know in depth about this, there's so much on the web. There's so much of this information that is available. But sadly, there's very little that we are doing. Have you heard, Pastor? I think it's the 4th time he's telling me that there's so much of this available on the web. But I'm in a way reading in between the words of what Pastor Gavin is talking about, that there's so much that's happening. People are aware of this, but what are we doing as a church? What are we doing, Pastor, as a church?
Yeah, but I would actually say, how many of our people are aware of it? Do you know?
That's the thing. Not too many people are aware of it.
I'm not aware of it, because what are we searching for on our websites? We, our young people and the youth and the adults, everyone else. What do you use your website for? In fact, there's so many of them are actually surfing it for pornography and in actually contributing to the destruction of these girls.
Exactly.
And the whole pornography industry is operating out of this, and that market is feeding on the bodies of the women.
Exactly.
And so, when you look at it, how many of our people recognize this as a problem? How many of the average Indian today, what's the percentage, can we say, are aware that 9 million girls are in sexual slavery? You take that 9 million and multiply it and say, okay, there may be about, for each girl, there may be 20 men that are using it. You're talking about 180 million men that are having a problem with sexual control and how to control their urges and how to control their appetite.
Imagine 180 million men on an average are violating the human dignity of our daughters. And these men are supported by a belief system. That's the worst.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
That's the worst. Pastor, I want to start with, before I get on to what the church needs to do about it, I want to know what you are doing about it. You and your family and your church, your ministry, your organization, what are you doing about this?
Well, to answer what the church is doing, I would widen that answer a little more to actually say, we as responsible Indian citizens, with the spiritual resource of love the church has given to us and gifted to us, we bring to the table that gift of love, and we operate from that gift of love. We are not those that are just looking and saying we're receiving some dollars for that. It's all, the government has clamped down on a lot of that stuff just now.
Yes.
But we Indians are rising up, and we want to do what we need to do, and we want to bring love to the table. We want to bring empowerment to the table. We want to be able to see people's lives being transformed. And so we as a church began the Anti-Human Trafficking Network. We began to integrate between different bodies, and we did not stop at it being something Christian. We went beyond that. So we had people from different faiths, from the Sikh faiths, from the Islamic faiths, from the Mutts.
So this, in effect, is a universal problem which calls for a universal solution, not just one group that goes to rescue these people.
Exactly.
You need the government, you need people of all faiths to come.
Exactly. When you say India, let's see India as a whole. And our commitment is to our nation. We love our nation.
Absolutely.
And we're committed. So we as a church brought people from different faiths together. The human rights people came into play. The others from the Dalit movements and other movements like that came in together with us. And we've been able to, we had 3 rallies in the city of Bangalore, and it's gone out, it's been noted in the newspapers.
Right.
We had a marvelous support.
A lot of awareness campaigns.
Yes, and so we actually took the awareness out to actually tell the schools, tell the colleges, this is the situation in our nation and you can make a difference. So we wanted the church to be informed. This is the problem, this is the issue of slavery in our country that exists in another form.
Yes.
In its worst form. This slavery is worse than anything you look at in the past with the slavery of the African nations.
God, exactly.
And this is the worst that you can get. And it's not just India alone, it's an international issue. It's an international issue.
It's happening all over the world.
All over the world.
But it's more prevalent in our society because of a belief
Yes.
system
Yes.
that supports this.
The belief system opens a little door. The commercial system
Exploits it.
takes it through a wide open gate.
When
And
you're saying commercial system, when you're talking to people, people don't understand the magnitude of this. Could you throw a few numbers?
well, when you're saying 7 to 9 million girls in sexual slavery and 30 to 40 million in child abuse, in child labor, and in bonded labor, you just take those numbers a little bit and multiply 7, 8, 9 million into servicing some 10 guys for 500 rupees a day. Look, what's your figures? Look at 30 to 40 million children in child labor and in bonded labor. Multiply that by what a person would earn per day. And try to arrive at some figures. I'm telling you, the number is mind-boggling. The figures will be mind-boggling. From child labor, from bonded labor, and from sexual slavery. You will not be able to even imagine the kind of figures that we are
You're talking
about.
like some 500 million per annum?
I think 500 million is a very tiny number
You're kidding me.
when you're looking at these figures. Yeah, I'm saying, take a piece of paper just now and do that, wherever you're sitting.
My God. So basically, even though there's a law, the law supersedes the belief system which violates our children and women,
Yes.
but still nobody is willing to do too much in terms of the gun. See, if an army can go and eliminate something, if an army can go and defeat its enemy, so to speak, why can't the law enforcement abolish this? Go head on. There has to be something somewhere that's holding them back. And the bottom line is the love of money.
I think that's it. It's the business angle that has overtaken everything else.
Pastor is telling me, when I mentioned that, okay, perhaps it's a 500 million per annum industry, Pastor said no. So you're talking about billions.
That's where it's headed. My little mind runs and says, just take a computer, take a little calculator, try to work it out. I tried doing it on my phone and my phone doesn't work because there's not enough digits on a mobile phone to actually calculate.
God. Can you imagine? We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry at the cost of our children being raped day in and day out. I mean, I've been involved in international law and with international governance, and I know how armies, the militaries, the navy defeats its enemy. When I mentioned to Pastor and I asked him, is it like a 500 million per annum industry? He said no. It's only a small percentage that I'm quoting. Pastor says, according to statistics that he has with him, it's a multi-billion per annum industry. Now, me being involved in international law, in international governance, I know that an army can walk in and defeat its enemy. I know that the United Nations is involved in many things where they try to bring justice. But closer back to home, we have a law in place. We have NGOs like Pastor has. But still, we are not able to abolish this vicious system simply because of the love of money, which the Bible says is the root cause of all evil. Because of this money, perhaps there are hands that are getting greased. If not, why will this system prevail? Why will such an evil system prevail? If this happens in your home or in my home, do we keep quiet? We don't need money to abolish that system.
Yeah.
We need the will to abolish that system of injustice.
Yes.
So why, Pastor, why is it not being abolished? Why is it not being wiped out? Why is it, like you said, in certain pockets or shrines? Is it still persevering?
You know, when I look at this, I'm not a statistician or something like that,
You're just human being who wants to do what's
I'm
right.
asking questions. I'm just asking questions. I'm looking at figures, and sometimes we stop and just say, okay, it looks like a lack of Devadasis are there in Karnataka. We just stop at the figure. I have this interest of applying the financial dimension to it and saying, if there are so many, what is the financial implication of that number?
Yes.
You see, so it's, I don't have figures to throw out. I don't, it's just something that I look at and say,
You know, I like what you're saying. I don't have figures, because even if one child is affected, it is our responsibility.
Oh yes. And so when I'm doing a little math with my limited ability, it's throwing up stuff that figures I can't even count. I can't even count it. So we are looking at those figures. We're looking at the law. We're saying we have the law. But my question is, do we have the will?
Exactly. Pastor, speaking about the will, because it's so important, you had mentioned about certain children within an age group go missing all of a sudden.
Yes.
And we don't know exactly where they've gone, what's happened. Perhaps we have a clue of a few of them. Could you shed light on that?
When you're looking at the statistics, the Deccan Chronicle had actually mentioned, I'm going into the article over here of the day. The Deccan Chronicle mentioned that 174 children go missing every day.
174 children go missing every single day.
25th May 2018.
My God.
This is the statistics, and more than half of them are untraced. And I'm looking at the statistics in that article, which says that most of the 75% of these kids that are going missing are actually girl children.
My God.
They're not just disappearing.
Pastor, for me, I haven't been into anti-corruption for a while, so I don't mind asking this question, because I've asked these type of questions earlier. The government is like a big brother in many instances.
Yes.
But why can't they curb this? Why can't they curb this? The numbers seem to just be increasing.
Yes. I think when you're saying government, until government and common man come into a common platform, as long as these two are operating on different platforms, we're not going to see anything.
Is there a disconnect that we're not able to operate together?
I believe there's a disconnect. I believe there's a distinct disconnect. Why aren't people from the village informing that we noticed in the neighboring house so many girls are missing? So many girls from the village have gone missing this week. Why isn't there a link between the government and the system, the people? And if we see, that's where the word democracy has meaning, not in the Parliament House. When democracy has meaning, when it operates at the local level, and the government and people come together. And we need to redefine what democracy is.
True.
It's not putting 500 guys into the Lok Sabha and just say, well, they've done an amazing job, they've come out with the laws.
The laws are just the law if it's not...
So if the law doesn't empower the common man,
Exactly.
if the law doesn't empower the common man and actually enlist him in this whole thing, nothing's going to happen.
Plus, you said about the girl children of a certain age group going missing.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, when we were talking in Bellary with these women and talking, I said there were girls of all age groups above 8, they were not there. And so when you talk to the women
about this?
and ask them, where are your daughters? Where are your daughters? They simply come out with an answer, somewhere in the village.
Huh.
And immediately when you hear somewhere in the village, you know there's a lot of mystery and there's a lot of possibility of where those girls are currently.
And what is that possibility?
The possibility is that these women who cannot even afford to look after their daughters, see, you should also understand that these women have gone through hell themselves.
Correct.
They haven't, from age 8, they've been out of family. They don't know what family is. When they get a child, there's no father to the child.
Correct.
And they don't know how to bring up their daughters. There's no bonding between mother and child. And that's what we're concerned about. And we want to be able to go and start establishing bonding. You can't blame them. You can't accuse them. They are victims themselves.
Exactly.
So how does a victim that has grown up without family values suddenly produce family values when she has a kid.
Exactly.
And of the little that she has, looks and says, I don't know how to look after this child. I don't know what to do for this child. She's disempowered. She has no family to back her, no one to stop anyone from taking her child. And we're seeing a cycle replay itself. And so that's where we as a church want to get in. And we've been going in there to tell the mothers, can we help you?
Wow.
Can we do something for your girl children? Can we educate them? Can we give them a future? Can we challenge the path that has been set out for them? Because I'm telling you that 90% of them are not educated. They might even belong to, in name that they belong to a school, but we had 7th grade girls who don't even know how to write the alphabets.
My God.
And so we don't want to blame anybody, but we want to look at ourselves and say we are responsible to do something to change your life.
Pastor, it's been an amazing discussion. I want you to appeal to the church as to what the church needs to do and to society in general. What do we need to do for these precious ones who are suffering?
Well, when I'm appealing to the church, I would say, first of all, break your walls. Get out and understand that the spirituality that God calls us to is not in the 4 walls of a church singing songs and singing hymns and then you say we carry a message of deliverance and all this stuff and you don't even know that 9 million girls are being sex trafficked. You don't even know that 30 million are in child labor. You don't even know that 40 million are in bonded labor. What is that understanding of a gospel of salvation that is so narrowed, and yet the favorite verse is, for God so loved the world? Is there an understanding of world in our understanding that God loves? You see, Dominic, that's the problem. We have made the love of God a private affair. We have made it a religious affair. We have made it only Christian affair. And yet the gospel is God is madly and crazily loved with every one of these girls, every one of those who are human trafficked, everyone that is affected by drugs, by suicide, by violence, whatever it is. The church needs to understand we need to break the nest, break the walls, have a church without walls. Let's go out to love the world around us. Let's start using our finances and everything we have. Let's not have people tell us we are getting money from outside. The church has the money to change lives. We can use the money to change lives or build a building. Buildings are required. Those things are required to set up even an orphanage for the children, places for them to study. We need that stuff. Yes, we need it. But let's begin to use our money to change lives. Let's use our finances to change lives. Let's begin to realize that conversion for the church is conversion from the cycles of slavery,
Amen,
of injustice, where the market feeds on your body and a male chauvinistic society decides what a woman will do with her body. Hey, that's the cycles we need to break. That's the cycles. That's salvation. That's liberation. And the Bible doesn't care from what background it comes from. The Bible calls you and me to recognize that this thing exists in society and go out and make a change. Go out and break the chains. And so we as a church need to be able to break those walls down, embrace community, go back to where we have the church has always operated in this nation, breaking walls down, converting people from slaves to free men.
Hallelujah.
Not everybody who has got converted has come to Christianity.
Exactly.
But there are thousands that have been converted from sexual slavery and other forms of slavery into the freedom that
of Christ.
every human being has been given by God.
Amen.
And so that's the thing we need to notice. We need to get involved in the lives of people. We need awareness. Our boys need to receive awareness. We need to understand that pornography is hitting so many thousands of our boys. It's not sparing any religious system as such.
Correct.
So will our boys in the church take a vow never to watch pornography?
Exactly.
Will our boys in the church take a vow never to entertain sexual misconduct? You know, the church, we need to step out and enlist others and call others together with us and say, let's rise up. Let's rise up. Let's convert ourselves from sleeping to being alive and aware and active to remove these things from our nation and our city. You know, there's a passage of scripture that we need to be aware of. It's a passage that motivates me, and I've taken it to my church and beyond the walls of my church, to every place that I've been at. And it's found in Proverbs chapter 24, and I'm reading from verse 10. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. The strength of a church is measured of how she responds to adversity. Absolutely. The Bible doesn't say the strength of a church is measured by the number of people that come in, the services you have, the finances you raise, the budget you have. The Bible says that the strength of a church or Christians is measured about how they rise up in adversity.
Wow.
Listen to this very carefully. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Rescue those who are being taken away to death.
Rescue those who are
being taken away to death.
My God.
Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. Now listen to this carefully, Dominic. If you say, behold, we did not know this story about 7 million, 9 million, 30 million, 40 million. We didn't know the story. 200 girls almost going missing every day. Listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. If you say, behold, we did not know this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who keeps watch over your soul?
Wow.
What is the reason why I'm sitting here in the studio with you and I could not have been one or born to a woman in sexual slavery?
Exactly.
Nothing else but the grace of God.
Amen.
God is watching over our souls as much as He's watching over the souls of every one of those little kids.
And He wants us to participate in their rescue.
And He says, God says, hey, I want you to know I'm watching over your soul. I'm watching over your spirit. And look at this. He says, does not He who watches over your soul know it? Will He not repay man according to his works? Is this preached today?
No. You heard Pastor Gavin speak about the church breaking down its walls. It's not about the number of... It's not about the numbers we have in attendance. It's not about the buildings we have. What is true salvation? What is true ministry? What is the essence of the message of salvation? For Christ has come to set the captives free. And we are partakers in that gospel to set the captives free. Beloved, I want you to watch this interview again and again. Perhaps take snippets of it. And you will understand the need of every hand to rescue these innocent people.
You know, Dominic, while we're making this statement just now, I'm looking and saying to the church, the Bible says you are the salt of the earth and light of the world. We can look at this problem and say government. We can look at this prayer and pass the problem away. But the Bible says, does not he who weighs the soul convict you?
Exactly.
And it's time to look in the mirror and point to the man in the mirror and say, if the salt has lost its saltiness, it is fit to be thrown on the ground and trampled.
Exactly.
If I say I believe in the life-changing power of the gospel and it's not changing somebody else's life through me, I fail the very core and purpose of the gospel of love.
You know, prostitution, or rather the violation of the rights of women and children, it did not happen overnight. It was there from the time of Adam till the time of Jesus and even now. The Bible speaks about a place called Corinth where there were temple prostitutes. And the Bible emphasizes on how the church reached out to the temple prostitutes, and many of them accepted Christ and they lived the life of freedom. And we have an opportunity as a church today to do that exact same thing. The gospel will set everybody free. I'm Dominic Dixon, and you have been watching Unshackled.
Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I just wanna praise you. I just wanna praise you. You broke my chains, now I can lift my hands. And I'm gonna praise you. I'm gonna praise you. In the corners of my mind, I just can't seem to find a reason to believe that I can